The number of people that have died associated with this event has increased. Right now, we're using the number of 58.
58 people didn't come home on October 1st, 2017. The city shut down. The Strip went dark.
Get down.
And 4 days later, a hockey team nobody believed in took the ice for the very first time. Sportsbooks had them at 500 to 1 to win the Stanley Cup. But here's what I want you to hold on to. The shooting didn't just change Las Vegas. It changed what this team was allowed to become. Before we talk about hockey, we need to talk about Las Vegas. Not the Vegas you visit. The Vegas people actually live there. This is a city of 2 million people that the rest of the country has spent decades treating as a destination. You fly in, you spend money, you fly out. The city's entire identity was built around the idea that nobody really stays, that nobody really belongs here. Hotels, casinos, shows. The tourism board spent a fortune on what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. A slogan that, if you think about it, is literally telling people this place doesn't count. There was no NFL team, no NBA team, no MLB team, no NHL team. Las Vegas was the largest metropolitan area in the United States without a single major professional sports franchise. The message from every major sports league for decades was the same. This isn't a real sports city. And then the NHL said yes. When Bill Foley paid $500 million for an expansion franchise in 2016, the jokes wrote themselves. The closest thing the city had to ice was the inside of a casino cocktail bar. But something else was happening underneath the jokes. A city that had been told for generations that it didn't really count, that its people were just the backdrop for other people's weekends, was about to get something it had never had before. A team. Their team. The problem was building it. Every existing NHL team got to protect their best players before the expansion draft. Vegas picked from whatever was left. The guys other franchises looked at and said, yeah, we're fine letting him go. So, who do you end up with? William Karlsson, a center the Columbus Blue Jackets handed over without blinking. The year before Vegas, 6 goals in a full season. 6. Nate Schmidt, a defenseman Washington quietly left unprotected. He later wrote an essay about those early weeks in Vegas. What he described wasn't a hockey team. It was a group of strangers in a new city, trying to figure out who they were to each other.
From the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Vegas Golden Knights select goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury.
And then there was Marc-Andre Fleury. 13 seasons in Pittsburgh. 3 Stanley Cups. He was the first overall pick in the 2003 draft. The player the franchise was built around before Crosby even arrived. The city didn't just respect him. They loved him the way you love someone who was there for everything. And then Pittsburgh drafted Matt Murray, a younger goalie. Cheaper. The future, they decided. And they went to Fleury and asked him to waive his no-movement clause so they could leave him exposed in the expansion draft. Fleury said yes. The team came forward to me and asked, Fleury said. It gave them more flexibility for the future. I thought it was the right thing to help the team. He held up his end, helped them win a championship. Signed autographs at a sporting goods store in Pittsburgh the day after the parade, knowing he was already gone. Then he drove to the airport. He was 32 years old. The retirement pieces were already being written in people's heads. And the coach? Gerard Gallant had been fired mid-season from Florida just months earlier. Not at the end of the year, mid-season. The Panthers let him go so fast, he was photographed outside the arena getting into a cab, luggage in hand, like a man who'd just been evicted from his own life. That's who they handed Vegas to. A cab ride coach, a goalie Pittsburgh had moved on from, a roster of hockey's forgotten men, and a city that had spent decades being told it didn't deserve a team. Sportsbooks set them at 500 to 1 to win the Stanley Cup. That wasn't disrespectful, but remember that name, Fleury. Because 9 days after the worst night in this city's history, he's going to be asked to carry something heavier than any hockey game. The Golden Knights' first home game wasn't just a hockey game, it was a funeral. October 1st, 2017, Sunday night. The Route 91 Harvest Festival. 22,000 people at an open-air venue just off the Strip. Jason Aldean was headlining. People had driven in from across the country. Some of them were Golden Knights players. About 10 of them were eating dinner at the Cosmopolitan that night when it happened, about a mile from the Mandalay Bay. At 10:05 p.m., a gunman on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay opened fire into the crowd below. For 11 minutes, it didn't stop. Marc-Andre Fleury was at home. He knew some of his new teammates had gone out on the Strip. He spent the next hours sending texts, waiting for replies, not sleeping until he heard back from everyone. When it was over, 58 dead, 413 shot, hundreds more hurt in the chaos. People who had never met carrying strangers to the street because the ambulances couldn't get through. Off-duty cops laying over bodies to shield them. A line of people waiting to donate blood 6 hours long the next morning. So long that the blood banks had to turn people away. The city Derek Engelland had called home for more than a decade, the city where he met his wife, where his kids were born, had just lived through the deadliest mass shooting in modern American history. The day after, something happened that nobody planned. Engelland gathered his teammates before practice. Not management, not a coach. The defenseman who'd earned $500 a week playing ECHL hockey in this city before he ever made the NHL. After practice, players loaded into SUVs and drove into the community. Bill Foley remembered it later.
They went out, they went to fire stations, police stations, they went to the convention center, they went to hospitals and saw people that had been shot. They met with families.
John Merrill, a defenseman, stood in a room full of officers and their families and said, to be able to see these people smile after what they've been through in the last few days, it's all worth it.
They were very happy, excited to see us, smiles on their faces, eager to say hello and tell us how excited they were to have us in Vegas. And it's really amazing to see that.
Engelland hugged a crying couple at the convention center who'd lost a friend at the concert. I'll remember that forever, he said. Seeing what they went through, you don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. You want to do so much more. He bought 20 game tickets for survivors and first responders. So did Nate Schmidt. 9 days later, the Golden Knights were scheduled to play their first home game. The question inside the organization was real. Do you play? Do you postpone? How do you lace up skates when the city is still identifying bodies? They played. But before the puck dropped on October 10th, they did something else first. The arena went dark. The names of the 58 victims were projected in gold onto the ice. Then, 58 seconds of silence. 1 second for each life. Then, Engelland took the microphone. He was not a public speaker. The largest group he'd ever addressed before this was 20 guys in a locker room. He and his wife, Melissa, had written the speech together, and he had practiced it for days.
Like all of you, I'm proud to call Las Vegas home. I met my wife here, my kids were born here, and I know how special this city is. To all the brave first responders that have worked tirelessly and courageously throughout this whole tragedy, we thank you. To the families and friends of the victims, know that we'll do everything we can to help you and our city heal. We are Vegas strong.
The speech lasted exactly 58 seconds. Then the lights came on. Fleury stood in his crease and took it in. Later, he said, "It gave me some goosebumps." He always talks about this city and how much he loves it. I know he cares a lot. I'm happy he got to do it. The game started. Engelland scored in the first 4 minutes. Vegas won 5-2. "We talked about tonight being the most important game we'll ever play," Gallant said afterward. He was right. Just not in the way anyone expected. A city that had been told for decades it didn't really count had just watched a hockey player stand at center ice and say, "You count. We're here. We're not going anywhere." And something locked into place that night that no general manager can draft and no owner can buy. A city decided, without a meeting or a vote or a press release, that this team was theirs. Not because they'd won anything, because they showed up first. What happened on the ice that season wasn't remarkable despite October 1st. It was because of it. The Golden Knights had opened the season on the road while the city was still in shock. They won their first game, then the second, then came home and won the opener we just talked about.
The first expansion club ever to get to a 3-0 start.
3 games in, they were 3-0. The first expansion team in NHL history to open 3-0. The hockey world was polite about it. Small sample, soft schedule, wait till December. December came. 7 games in, they were 7-1. The analysts started reaching for new explanations. By November, T-Mobile Arena was the loudest building in the league. People who had shown up not knowing the rules were screaming about offsides calls and arguing about it in the parking lot after. People who had never watched a hockey game in their lives suddenly had a team. Nate Schmidt wrote about it. "Vegas has been so good to us for the first couple weeks that we've been here," he wrote. "The moral support and the welcome and how excited people are to see us in town, it has been incredible. This is a part of who we are now, and we are a part of this." Here's the one story that tells you everything about how the hockey side of this worked. William Karlsson, 6 goals the year before in Columbus. In Vegas, under Gallant's system, built on speed, trust, and releasing players from the cages other coaches had put them in, Karlsson scored 43 goals. That's not a bounce back year. That's not a hot streak. That's a completely different player. Gallant's system found something in him that Columbus either didn't see or didn't bother looking for. Karlsson wasn't even the only one. Jonathan Marchessault, Riley Smith, David Perron. Different teams, different stories, same pattern. Ryan Reeves, traded in from the Penguins at the deadline, stood at the podium after they clinched the Western Conference title and said, "Everybody on this team has something to prove. We call ourselves the Golden Misfits for a reason. We've proven everyone else wrong all season." By April, they had won the Pacific Division. Year 1. No expansion team in NHL history had done it. Not in hockey, not in basketball, not in football, not in baseball. The playoffs. Round 1, LA Kings. It ends here. They swept them in 4. Fleury posted a .958 save percentage across 10 games of the first 2 rounds. The man Pittsburgh had quietly shelved was playing the best hockey of his career. Round 2, San Jose. 6 games. Vegas moves on. Western Conference Final, Winnipeg Jets. 4 straight wins after dropping Game 1. "Whoever we play in the next round," Reeves said, clutching a half-eaten box of pepperoni pizza at the podium, "they're going to have a tough time." A team built from hockey's forgotten men was going to the Stanley Cup Final. James Neal, one of the players who'd been in the community in the days after the shooting, said what all of them were feeling. You're suddenly playing for a lot more than yourself and the team. It goes further. It means more. Very special to be a part of. The sportsbook had priced them as a joke. The sportsbook was wrong. Stanley Cup Final. Vegas Golden Knights versus the Washington Capitals. Washington had been knocking on this door for a decade. Alex Ovechkin, the greatest goal scorer of his generation, had never won. This was supposed to be his year, his moment, his legacy. And across from him, a franchise 11 months old. The Capitals won in 5 games. Watching it, you could see why. The depth, the experience, what 15 years of building looks like against 15 months. Ovechkin finally lifted that cup on Vegas ice, and the arena went the kind of quiet that only happens when something genuinely beautiful falls just short. But then Vegas threw a parade. Not a championship parade, a thank you. Tens of thousands of people lining the strip in the June heat for a team that hadn't won anything. Because that was never actually the point. 8 months earlier, this city was identifying bodies. Before the season even started, the players were at hospitals and fire stations. Engeland was buying game tickets for survivors. They put Vegas Strong on the boards instead of ads for the home opener. For every single home game that season, they honored a Vegas Strong hero. A survivor, a first responder, a family member of someone lost. At the last home game of the regular season, they raised 58 stars to the rafters. 1 for each person who died. Retired number 58 forever. Nevada Governor Brian Sandoval was there that night. It's unprecedented what the Knights have done for this community, he said. When they raised that 58 to the rafters, and the way they brought the community together, I've never seen anything like it. Gallant, the man they photographed getting into that cab with his luggage, won Coach of the Year and took his team to the Stanley Cup final in the same breath. Fleury, handed over by Pittsburgh like he was inventory, played the best hockey of his career in front of a city that needed him. At the end of that run, Gallant said of his goalie simply, "I don't know what to say. He's been our best player." The 500-1 cup ticket? Left on the table by almost everyone who could have taken it. Not by Las Vegas, which traded something that doesn't have a payout window. They traded their grief, their hope, the quiet need of a city that had spent decades being told it didn't count to finally feel like it did. The Golden Knights paid every cent of it back. Here's what Las Vegas was before October 1st. A city of 2 million people that the country treated like a long weekend. A place you passed through. A place that didn't count. And here's what it was by June. A city that threw a parade for a team that didn't win the championship. A city that filled a hockey arena every night for 8 months and screamed itself hoarse for a group of men who'd been told by every previous employer they weren't quite good enough. A city that put 58 stars in the rafters and retired a number for people who never played a game. You can build a roster. You can hire a coach. You can spend $500 million on a franchise. You cannot manufacture what happened between this team and this city in the year after October 1st, 2017. It was earned in hospitals, in fire stations, in 58 seconds of silence on a Tuesday night in October, in a speech written by a defenseman and his wife at their kitchen table because someone had to say something and nobody else was going to. The Vegas Golden Knights were never just a hockey team. They were proof that a city no one thought was real could become the realest thing in the room. If this one stayed with you, the super thanks button is right there. Every single one goes straight back into the next story. And if you want to trade on the Golden Knights, the link is in the description. Sign up, trade $20, get $20 back.